Do you want to unlock your inner excellence? Do you want to learn how to think like a champion? My name is Jim Murphy, and I'm a performance coach and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Inner Excellence. With Inner Excellence, you'll learn how to perform under pressure, remove mental blocks, achieve greatness, and fully live every moment. Sound good? It's all in Inner Excellence, available now where books and audiobooks are sold.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. One of the nonprofits that really meant a lot to me back in the early 2000s, there was only a handful that existed compared to today. And I've mentioned a few of them over the years on the show here. I've mentioned Livestrong, of course. I started Stupid Cancer. I did a whole series on the American Brain Tumor Association and a group called the Wellness Community. But there was another organization that I stumbled upon in the early days, mid-2000s, called CancerCare, which some of you may know of, some of you may not. They've been around like 80 years. They're not well known. We talk about this on the show. My guest today is Christine Verini, the new CEO of CancerCare. Around 2005, 6, 7, when I was being incubated at Livestrong, I had the opportunity to work with CancerCare and create their first ever young adult cancer program. And the organization is very special. It occupies a unique space for me personally. Christine is a pharmacist who worked in industry who is, doing God's work with this organization. She's an incredible human being. She has an incredible story to tell. She's been personally affected by cancer. I mean, who hasn't? And it was just a thrill to see her. She's one of my closest friends, and enjoy the show. Hello, Christine.
Hello, Pat.
Fancy meeting you here.
And you're only a few blocks away.
I know. How cool is that?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
When I looked up the address, you were like right down the road.
Well, I have a soft spot for that location because I was there 20 years ago. And ironically, one of the places that I incubated at while I was building Stupid Cancer was around the corner. The super story was that I was tired of doing things in my house from my second bedroom, and I felt the dignity of a zip code would come in handy. So I met this guy who had an ad agency literally around the corner from CancerCare on 25th? Yeah, 25th. And he let me have a desk there.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, so really interesting. So I can't espouse enough to the listeners how important CancerCare has been in my life. I only talk about maybe a few organizations, like Livestrong was really important to me. Obviously, I started Stupid Cancer, but I always felt like it's been the unsung hero. How do you feel about that?
CancerCare is an amazing organization, and we are the unsung hero. I often wonder why everyone doesn't always know about us, because we do so much for so many people.
For so long.
For 81 years. We'll be 81 this year.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you think about how many people, how many lives we've affected from a person living with cancer, from a caregiver perspective, from a bereaved perspective. We help everyone. And it's the amount of people that we help is just extraordinarily huge. And everyone should know more about us.
That's always been if I'm going to put my nonprofit hat back on for a moment, something like 72,000 young adults were diagnosed. We maybe saw 2,000 or 3,000 a year. We're like, where's everyone else? And how do they not know about us? And you have to live with that every day. These people that don't know they can look for you, but do they really know to look for you?
They don't. We did a study a few years ago, probably about 6 years ago, that actually we looked at who gets them to advocacy. And it's not the oncologist and it's not the oncology nurse. It's the primary care doctor is more likely to refer. And when you think about it, it makes sense because they're the ones who know you through and through. They know you for years. They know your children's names. They know your dog's name. They know what your job is. They're not that specialist that you're going to for something that happened. They've been a part of your life for many years. So you're more comfortable having the conversations
So
with primary
does that
care.
rule out the fact that oncologists just are overwhelmed with things to remember that are outside the hospital walls? And primary care they're attuned to looking for these things on behalf of their patients?
No, I think every doctor's overwhelmed by the amount of work that they have to do. But I do think that when you're talking to them and you're saying, I'm struggling with finances or I can't get transportation to the doctor, they will say, did you try looking at an advocacy group? Whereas if you're a cancer patient, sometimes you're afraid to tell people that you don't have or you have a need of some kind. And I think that's a challenge in of itself. People don't often report side effects. I think that's also a challenge, but they also definitely, especially, I can say it, men don't often tell people.
I represent that.
That's why I figured I could say it. They don't often speak about the challenges that they have. And if it's a financial one, it's even harder for them to open up about.
One of the things that really changed my perspective before I started stupid cancer was when Livestrong started using the word practical. We talked about survivorship, and back then it was quality of life or just, psychosocial fancy words we don't use anymore. Now it's mental health. And I would just say, how do we get as unfucked as possible? But they said we deal with the practical issues. Yeah. And that made a lot of sense to me because that speaks more people, your life, your practical. Like you said, how do you get to care? Who's going to get your Uber? Who's going to cook your dinner? Who's going to watch your kids, right? And that is all encompassing of what CancerCare is, one of the few groups that they do all of that.
We do. So the three biggest barriers that we see are food insecurity, transportation, and housing or rent and utilities. So if it's an interesting concept, and I always try to explain to people, it's a bigger issue, right? If people cannot have a roof over their head, food on the table to feed their children, and a way to get back and forth to the doctor, no matter what type of treatment you have, it's not going to matter, right? And I think that's part of the reason why when people are looking at doing screenings are a wonderful thing. We need to do more of them, but people are afraid of the unknown. What if I have it and I don't have the finances to take care of it? So they just let it go.
So this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek little observation here, but the name of the organization is very generic. And not that you're going to rebrand yourself after 81 years, but people searching the internet, this is before the internet. So you just kind of had I remember just seeing phone numbers in Coping magazine in the 90s. I didn't know what this was. And now people are searching for things. But I remember that this whole problem when the cancer support community called themselves that. Right? You can't search for that because that's the search. You're going to find 1,000 things that aren't that. Right? CancerCare itself is how do I get care from the brand doesn't pop up. Mm-hmm. So you're saying the feeder system is mostly primary care.
It's not only primary care, but that's a part of it.
Primary care.
Primary care. But I would say that social workers, so we have over 25 master trained social workers on our staff, refer to us from across the nation. We also have hospitals that refer to us across the nation. It is not only just primary care, but it's mostly social workers, I would say, is the biggest kind of group of people that refer to us. We not only do help people practically, which we talk often about, which I had mentioned, the three top barriers. We also help people from an education perspective because we need to make them become their own self-advocates and educate themselves on whatever topic it may be on. It could be on talking to a healthcare provider. It could be on a disease state. It could be on caregiving and the stress and burnout of caregiving. You name it, we have it because we've been around for so long. And then the other aspect of it is that, because we get referred from all these different places, we see really a very broad group of people across the nation, mostly women. I will be upfront. We do mostly see women. It's a majority of what we see, but in all disease states, mostly the high level or the higher incidence tumors, a lot of the solids, a lot of the hemes, higher incidence levels as well. And I think it's important for people to recognize that because we do a little bit of practical, a little bit of emotional, and a little little bit of education, it really is kind of that one stop for people to help with their services in regards to whether it's they need help talking to someone, if they need help with food on the table, if they need help with understanding a topic of some kind. We have all of these things in one place. And I think that's the advantage. And I always tell people, because we do have such a generic name, that we put the care in cancer, right? We look at it from a holistic perspective. But it's true, right? When you think about it, we really do, because you're helping the people with daily practical needs, with emotional needs, with educational needs.
One of the things that also intrigued me, because I was coming off a decade in the ad industry. When I couldn't be a concert pianist, I got stuck in working for selling Doritos and whatnot and fixing computers. But I'm a brand guy. And what I found really interesting was that back in those days, there were very few, I'll call them Unitarian brands in cancer. It was always like they cared about what tumor you had. And I mean, say what you want about ACS, but they never really struck me as a group that helped patients directly. Maybe Hope Lodge is one of the things that they do that really sticks in my brain. But Livestrong was egalitarian. They didn't really care where in your body the cancer was. And I took a lot of that from the brand and how people related to it with the wristbands and to stupid cancer. But CancerCare was kind of one of the only other sort of disease agnostic or Unitarian. You didn't care what people have. You don't care what stage they were. It wasn't remember it was a contest? Mm-hmm. Oh, you only had this, right? You welcomed, it was like the Statue of Liberty of cancer support, the tired and the poor.
We welcome everyone.
Yes.
And I think that's an important part. We are, a broad-based pan-tumor organization. And I think it makes sense for us because we look at it from a standpoint of, like you said, we're not looking at a specific disease or a specific treatment modality or a specific mutation. And those are all relevant and very important. But I always feel like we kind of are the umbrella to the tumors. But what's great about CancerCare is that we actually then will refer you to those more specific organizations. If we cannot help from a general perspective and we know that they offer something, we're really good partners and we usually refer out to other advocacy organizations. Yeah. This is not a competition. We all are here to make a difference to people living with cancer and their families. There's nothing more important than us actually working together more effectively.
I'll also talk about receptivity. There are so many groups that are get off my lawn. Mm-hmm. And Leukemia Lymphoma Society was another one of those groups that were Matt, we need your help. We don't know how to talk to Gen Xers. Can you bring the Livestrong Alliance crew to us? And they helped create CancerCon. I mean, it was called OMG back then, but they were the seeds that got the first young adult cancer trade show into existence. And CancerCare, Diane was there back then, Diane Blum. Mm-hmm. And she was like, we don't know how to talk to Gen Xers either because the millennials were in high school. And they let us build the first young adult cancer program with my dear friend, the late Jody Sachs, rest in peace. She was a colon cancer back when colon cancer was even worse than it is today. And she was a lawyer who got sick in her 20s and practiced till the day she died. But she helped create the first young adult cancer program with Julie Larson and a group called Teachers and Writers. I remember this very vividly, and I actually have a book on my shelf behind you that we wrote as part of a class curriculum over the course of 6 months.
That's amazing.
It was a writing workshop that I helped lead with Jody and Julie.
But what's amazing is actually...
But my point is you cared that we weren't the majority of people, and you welcomed us in as a collaboration.
And we still care.
Yes.
So
I would hope so.
We still work collaboratively.
82 years. Go the hell away.
No, but I mean, we care about other groups and what they do. And we actually partner well with Stupid Cancer. I also would say that, we're seeing more and more people, younger people getting diseases that we didn't see when you were diagnosed. We see people now with pancreatic cancer in their late 20s. Bladder, kidney cancer in their 30s. Things that I've been in cancer forever. Yeah. I hate to admit that, but we're forever. And we are seeing younger and younger people with diseases that we normally would have seen with people who are of the older age group. And we're now seeing them in the 30s and 40s and sometimes 20s. We have an ovarian cancer patient. I think she's 18.
Wow.
So things that you never saw before, we're seeing now. And there are some, there's some research out there about colorectal cancer increases and breast cancer, but now also there's these other disease areas that were really, really more for the older population. We're now seeing them in younger adults. So what you did is contributing even more now than you would have ever realized, because there's such a need now more than ever.
Right. And as of this recording in February 20-something?
22nd.
Whatever it is. Time Magazine just had another article about young adult cancer, almost 17 years to the day of when they talked about stupid cancer in 2007, if I did the math right there. And they're reinforced everything. That was bad math, but reinforcing everything you're saying, which is, yes, thank you, probably agribusiness, for giving everyone cancer in their 20s now instead of in their 70s. That's another podcast. Yeah. But I love that CancerCare has been one of the more malleable organizations that can adapt. And you have a very flexible team of all ages. And it's always been very diverse and very receptive. And I just think I keep praising, yes, it's the CancerCare show, everyone, but I can't speak highly enough of the culture it's had. And I wanted to ask you, you're new, relatively speaking. It's been 81 years. You've been there too, right?
As CEO, yes.
Yes. I mean, you were there, but now as CEO. We're going to talk about CEO therapy after the break. But I did want to talk quickly about your background in pharmacy, and you did work for the industry. And then you went to the, dare I say, the good side, the halo side. But when you look back, I know there's no regrets in life because you can't really change what you made, but has that trajectory been what you aspired for to become when you started?
I've been very, very blessed in many ways. So my sister, I'll start why. I guess
the why.
That's the most important to me, is the why. So my sister, I was just out of pharmacy school, and my sister was diagnosed with a very rare breast cancer called inflammatory breast cancer. She was 28 with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I decided then and there that I wanted to make a difference to people and their families living with cancer. Then and there, and I never looked back. Over 25 years later, and she's still my best friend. So there are miracles, and I can honestly and comfortably tell you my purpose and my passion, I live it every day. No matter what role I was in, I lived it every day. So I started out mixing the chemotherapy in the infusion centers, and then I went in the hospital, and I did it in the hospital, and I oversaw ambulatory oncology centers at 2 different campuses. And then I went into the industry, and I was a medical science liaison, so I helped from a medical perspective. Then I went into marketing, and then I had opportunities to go into a global role, launch a drug into the marketplace in metastatic breast cancer. I was also blessed to work directly for the CMO, so that was an interesting role. And then my last role was VP of Corporate Communications and Advocacy. Every role that I took, I could do more for patients and their families. Every role that I thought this is great, the next role was even greater. Mm-hmm. So I always tried to do more because I felt that our voice, whether you're a patient or a caregiver or an advocate, needs to be heard. And every voice in every role I chose to build out over time to make a difference. So I've been very, very, very lucky to be able to increase my voice. And now I'm at a pinnacle of my career, I guess you could say, in an organization that I worked with for 20 years on the other side. And I really knew they were a great organization. They offer so much to patients and caregivers and the bereaved. And I really am very, very lucky to lead this organization and the people that work in it.
What's your sister's name?
Joni.
Joni.
Yeah, she's my purpose and my passion, and she knows it.
Okay. Is she listening?
I don't know. I think my phone just vibrated, so she might be texting me.
We just contacted her spiritually. The Ouija board is vibrating. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with some CEO therapy.
Okay.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Are you looking for a new job or want a career change? Look no further than Monster.com. Need a little help standing out? Our expert resume writing services will make sure you shine. Want to brush up on your interview skills? Engage with our AI interview prep tool. Want some advice on negotiating your new salary? Visit our salary tools and extensive library of career advice articles, and you'll have all the tips and tricks you'll need to succeed. Visit Monster.com today and take the first step towards your career. Monster.com. Find your right job fit.
Shopify's point of sale system helps you sell at every stage of your business. Need a fast and secure way to take payments in person? We've got you covered. How about card readers you can rely on anywhere you sell?
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yep, that too. Want one place to manage all your online and in-person sales? That's kind of our thing. Wherever you sell, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen. Shopify.com/listen.
One of the most interesting reflections I've had, I mean, I've stepped down 7 years ago, so I'm kind of out of the hot seat a lot, but the memory is there, and I would say the muscle memory is there in my brain sometimes, was it almost became a bit of a dopamine addiction to want to help more people, and you couldn't. And like I said before at the top of the show, we only maybe helped 2% or 3% of the people who needed to know we existed. And it was just, you wake up every day and say, how can I help more people? And you simply can't. How do you struggle with that? There are so many people who need to know you exist and don't. And does that keep you up at night in some form or fashion mentally?
It does. Because every time you want to reach more, that means something has to be done for it, right? And you only have, in the not-for-profit world, there's only, a certain amount of arms and legs that can get things done. And you can't put another thing on someone else's plate. So that is a definite challenge. But I think it's trying to think differently, try to be innovative, try to connect with the right people to get your messaging out, keeping it simple. And I think steady wins the race. So a little at a time, I think we'll chop away at it a little at a time. Like I just talked about my career and how I wanted to do more and do more and do more. I feel the same way about this, is we will build who we are and build awareness over time. It's not going to happen overnight. Unfortunate, but true.
So I want to talk about empathy. It's always a hot topic here on the show because there's a lack of it in certain places, but people find it in nonprofit if they find the nonprofit. What's been your biggest takeaway in what you've seen patients experience when they get brought into the club they never asked to join with like a hug instead of a really boring TV ad?
Well, the hug definitely wins.
I mean, my whole point is I've been very critical of industry because for the listeners, compliance of the lawyers that make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted, and it just ruins empathy. And that's why you see people, happy cancer patients on TV for cancer ads that no one wants to see. Right. Finding an organization like a CancerCare, like a Stupid Cancer, it really is the hug needed. What would you say is, I mean, it's like picking your favorite kid, but do you have any specific moments where you experienced the patient's eyes going bright, wide-eyed, and you watched hope happen in just an instant?
Every day I talk to a patient. I mean, if there's an opportunity where they come into, because we have the opportunity for them to come into the office. I mean, the stories are hard, right? But when you see them talking about what the social worker or the resource navigator did for them and how appreciative they are. The other day we had a little ad on the Super Bowl, like not an ad, but like kind of and ask for, and the Super Bowl, if you give $5 and everybody at your game gives $5, we can help some patients at CancerCare. And this really got to me the other day. A patient emailed us and said, I don't have a lot, but I'm going to give you $5 because you helped me in so many ways. And then it's things like that really that resonates with me of why we do what we do every day. I wish I could pick one, but I have so many. Mm-hmm. The other day I got an email message from five kids at a school in New Jersey who decided that they wanted to help CancerCare, and they dedicated the donation that they made from the efforts that they had to CancerCare, and they were just telling us why, and it was because we were all of us were somehow affected by it. These are young kids, so that makes my heart, just bubble up. I could name 100 of them off the top of my head. I wouldn't say that one sticks out the most, because every day I'm hopeful that I can put my head on my pillow and know that all of us at the organization, all of us could put our heads on our pillow and feel that we made a difference.
One of the stories I tell about where I felt I learned something I couldn't have possibly known, even though as a survivor myself, was we were we launched the mobile app in 2013 before they were trendy.
Oh, wow.
And that's the story for another show. But I was giving a speech down in Hopkins to the Teen Cancer Center. And one of the nurses down there was also a teen survivor who was in her late 20s. And I was telling her about, we're launching this mobile app, which again was kind of like a Tinder for cancer before its time. Not really for dating, I suppose. Metaphorically speaking, folks. And she said, this is an amazing resource. It's nice to know it's there, but I'm not ready to use it yet. And I hadn't thought about that. There are people who just aren't ready to take advantage of things, even when they know they're there. And she ended it by saying, it's just nice to know it's there when I choose to need it. Have you experienced that?
Yes. And I'm giggling because my sister was that person.
Okay.
But I was the one who built the voice from an advocacy perspective. She didn't want the voice, but my career became the voice for the patients, because she didn't want to. She wanted to move forward and kind of leave it all behind.
Yes.
But I wanted to proceed and build a voice for patients and their families. So it was just interesting that she was the same. She's like, if I need it, I know it's there. You can help me with it. That's okay. But I actually made a career out of it because she didn't want to. And I felt it was so important of a need for people, because they will come at the point when they need it. They will come back. Mm-hmm. It's like what we talked about earlier, is building the awareness of who we are as an organization takes time, effort, and energy, right?
81 years.
It takes a lot. And it also, it's when they need it, right? So it's like anything else in life. When you go to buy a car, you go when you need it. You don't buy a car just to buy a car. You go when you need it.
You choose to buy a car. You don't go to Cancer University to get it one day and know things exist.
True, but everybody has different ways of dealing with their emotions, right? And everybody has different ways of dealing with situations. So you have to accept the people who are in front of you, if they're ready, if they're not. We ask everybody if they need more assistance on learning about clinical trials. Every call that we get, 1,000 calls a week, we ask, do you want to learn more? Most people say no, but there's a good percentage now that are asking, yes, I do want to learn more about what a clinical trial is. So it's just an example of an ask. Majority say no, but they want the information for later on when they're ready.
All right. I don't know the answer to this question. Mm-hmm. What happens when people call and say, I want to negotiate my bill with my hospital, or I think I'm getting screwed by my health insurance company? A hot topic these days. Do you guys field those questions, or do you defer them to groups that specialize?
We specialize. We defer them to people who specialize. I mean, we'll talk to them and, kind of dive into what the challenges that, so we get it to the right group that kind of focuses, whether it be a Triage Cancer or another organization, depending upon what the topic of need is.
That's also a really good sign of leadership, was when you know where the Venn diagram exists between you and other resources.
We can't be everything to everyone, and that's okay. We shouldn't be. There's so many great organizations out there. That's why we always need to look at it from a standpoint of how can we partner with each other. I think it is gotten, like you said, where we've divided, like so many different buckets of people into biomarker advocacy groups, and they're important, and tumor advocacy groups, and they're important. And there's so many different groups out there. There's for young adults, there's for LGBTQ+, there's for all of these things. They're all important because there are needs out there for them. But ultimately, a pan-tumor organization, our goal is to help them generally, give them what we need, and then pass them on to those groups when needed.
Yeah, that's the downstream effect. That's what really you want to be tip of the spear. And then help them follow the yellow brick road that they had no idea was there in the first place.
Exactly.
That's crazy. Do you work with volunteers?
Not that often. Occasionally we'll have some volunteers. They're more volunteers for helping us with our backpacks or winter warmth program or small programs. Sometimes, occasionally, making kits for caregivers or patients.
So the very first Stupid Cancer website had 6 buttons on it. And each button led to a handmade directory that I hand coded in my second bedroom with no money in 2007. But the buttons I think are still relevant today. One was I'm broke. I need a lawyer. I need a job. I'm all alone. I want to vent. And what do you, from a heat map perspective, what do you see the top questions these days from patients?
I'd say the practical needs that I talked about, the barriers that they're facing.
So they need help today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the practical needs first, for sure. From a work perspective, people that are working, of the working age, similar barriers, because we look at it from different perspectives. It's the practical needs. Emotional needs are kind of, I guess, the next round of needs. So that mental wellness component of dealing. But the practical daily needs are, for sure, our number one reason for people calling.
Do you have any hot takes on the AI chatbots helping cancer patients navigate things? I have my opinions, as you can imagine, but even experience looking at that rising sector.
I have to show you a video that we're doing. We have a CancerCare at Work initiative, and I think AI has its place. And I'll start with that. I think AI definitely has a place. We use it internally. We play around with it to, look at and do searches for different things, to look at templates and see if it could be written. We actually even tried it recently for a video that we created to see if it would work. I don't know if we're ready for any of that, but we are testing. We are definitely testing. I think it's great from a, analytic perspective and looking at if it can help from a science perspective. Amazing if it can. From a not-for-profit perspective, I think we're just still trying to figure out how. We are meeting with 2 different companies in the upcoming months to see if there's a value to what they offer. So we're just testing right now to see what's out there.
All right. I'm volunteering to be your bullshit detector filter.
Okay.
So just loop me in and I'll tell you whether they're a waste of time or not.
Okay, perfect.
I probably know them.
That's perfect. I will. When I get back to the office,
Okay.
I will.
I want a business card. Chief Bullshit Sniffer for CancerCare.
I mean, AI is amazing, but it also, we recognize, we will put in something like, what do you say to your manager if you get diagnosed with cancer? If you want to disclose,
Right?
And it comes up with this terrible information
With lots of emojis and bullet points and cliches.
and we're like, no, that's not going to work.
My take
always
on
going to need a human.
I'm going to look. We're Gen Xers. There's no such thing as life with just robots. We'll be heads in jars, and our Greek grandchildren will be floating in space and somewhere. But for now, we need human beings on it. My hot take on AI is that the large language models, not that I know what the hell that means really, are too broad for the niche of knowing what the hell to do when you're in a store you didn't want to shop in the first place. If there was a way, we were terrifyingly joking that if there was a Matbot 3000, maybe 4,000, I get so many calls, regrettably. I call it the terrible privilege. I'm sure you can echo on this later on, that, my cousin has cancer. I mean, just yesterday, my wife's hairstylist of 25 years, she's 38, or she started as a teenager working on my wife's hair, glioblastoma. And I'm here helping her get to know the American Brain Tumor Association and the folks at Duke University. And my buddy Marty's dad it's just I'm the person they know to come to, and they're lucky to have me, like I was lucky to have certain people in my time. But if I could institutionalize myself as MapBot 4000 and just be available to everyone, that's a better use in my mind, my crazy, clouded, non-cocaine driven mind, of AI serving the niche. Maybe I say this, whatever. If there's such a term as the small language model, just imagine CancerCare and Stupid Cancer being their own bots, the institutional wisdom of 81 years in a machine that can just give you complementary information out of the gate.
If people knew of us sooner, that's the biggest question.
Right. The intervention.
The biggest thing that we get when we actually meet with people is, I wish I knew of you sooner. So maybe let's create something, Matt, you and I, where we can have you be like a concierge way in to people to kind of walk them through kind of those key things that they need to be walked through, and then we can help with the rest.
I will then go register the shithappenstore.com or .org, sorry. I will be the Abe Simpson greeter at the Walmart you never wanted to shop in before. Holograms. Oh my God. Wait, so tell me, I can't imagine you aren't the recipient of many "my friend has cancer, what do I do" calls all the time.
Once a week, at a minimum. Mm-hmm. Yeah, once a week. And it's really hard because, you would think with all the science that's out there and all the, the great breakthroughs and innovations that we would have less of those messages. I almost feel like I have more over the past few years. Mm-hmm.
I just wrote an article chastising the geniuses that yell at social determinants of health by excluding Google as being a social determinant of health, because your search algorithm determines whether you know shit. Mm-hmm. And it's never really in the interest of the algorithm to tell you what you need to know. It's in the interest of the algorithm to tell you who's paying for you to know something they think you need to know. And never, ever does a nonprofit come up when you tell it, I need to this or this or this or this. Unless, again, you're like $1 billion nonprofit that spends money on SEO like Microsoft does, which doesn't really help the people that need to know practical things.
Mm-mm. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a challenge. I think we'll never be able to, unless there's someone out there who wants to give us millions of dollars
Mark Cuban.
to give us millions of dollars to help get messaging out there. If anyone knows Mark Cuban.
Yeah, right. He clearly listens to
Send
the show,
him
right,
my
Mark?
way.
Yeah, Mark, the seat's waiting for you. How do you feel that all these years later, your background in pharmacy has informed your leadership? Did I stump you?
No, I was thinking about how to answer it. No, it's a great question. I actually, pharmacy, I love science. So I will always be looking for the innovations and the science in this area to help make a difference to people and their families, right? I think, my sister wouldn't be here if she didn't do X or Y or Z. You may not have been here if you chose a different route. So I love the science. And I think loving the science brought me to recognize that it's intertwined with the people, right? So it's not one or the other. It's all of us together. It's the science, it's the people, it's the mental well-being, it's the practical daily needs. All of those things together make up kind of the best job ever, which is what I'm doing right now.
You have a favorite, inane moment you can't quite explain?
In life or at work?
It's interesting that culture makes fun of cancer now. It's gotten really kind of mainstream at this point. I'll give you, all right, so my example was that I got to sit in on the screenings of 50/50, the cancer movie, which was I think the first cancer comedy officially. And I'm just I'm meeting Seth Rogen and I'm meeting, what's his name? Evan, his writer partner, Evan Goldberg. And I'm sitting here watching a cancer comedy in our culture for the first time. And this is super weird, surreal, cool. Is it going to be normal to just talk about no one's going to just be Deborah Winger anymore and this is a mainstream thing? That to me was absolutely surreal.
But actually, I think it's surreal in a negative way, right? If we're making it normalized, then how does society try to address all the other things? So you can normalize that it exists, okay? But then we should be normalizing how people get treated. We should be normalizing the societal issues that the patients face. We should be normalizing the financial issues that the patients face. It's like you have to normalize everything for it to be, I think, in society is, I don't know, okay.
No, that's valid too. I look at it from the perspective of, yes, I was diagnosed 30 years ago when it was cancer, right? And now, like, you're watching Seth Rogen talk about cancer on the silver screen. Will that make it more sort of maybe less shocking for people to feel comfortable talking about it?
I hope so. But I would say that in 1944, when CancerCare was...
Sorry, what year was that again?
1944, and it was cancer.
It was the cancer. Yeah.
You didn't even say cancer.
No.
So it was. So now hearing that is kind of interesting from my perspective. But I don't know if you can normalize the challenges that it faces. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It is, yes, you can normalize it that people have it. Yes, but I don't know. It really is dependent upon the situation. I guess you can make it in a movie and make it normal, but I don't know if it'll ever be a normal situation. Just because every patient is different, every experience is different. Yeah. So I think it's hard to say that you could normalize it totally. I guess for some it could be normalized, right, but not for all.
So one of the other things, I think this is progress. The quick yarn I'll tell you is progress. So we did some work on a TV show called Chasing Life on Lifetime TV. And it was all about a young adult with cancer. And I was a script advisor, and we brought in some other people to help them build what they used to call authenticity into the character. And this is really weird to say it this way, but she got sick on the, in the episode, and she went on chemotherapy. And this was back when there were like forums. Remember forums?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the feedback was like, she didn't lose her hair fast enough. Like, that's such a weird, awesome, surreal kind of feedback. And then eventually she lost her hair. Like, what took her so long? And meanwhile, she was legitimately in the script put on a chemotherapy that prevented hair loss. So it was disclosed, right, and like, no, that doesn't happen. Yes, it does. So there was debating in the forums that not all chemo makes you bald anymore.
Right.
I think that was interesting.
That's pretty cool, actually, that they actually were so. But I think that shows the passion that people have to tell their story, right? There's the real people that are going through. There's crazy people now that are out there that are telling stories that aren't real,
right? And
then you have these people who really want to tell their story and give their experience, which is amazing. But there's also the challenges when you talk about cancer. Some people will ghost people with cancer, right? It's a very common thing that
even still today.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like even today, so it's really hard for people to normalize something when they don't want to understand it. They just they ghost. They just say, you know what? Or someone at work gets cancer and they just keep their distance. So we have to get better at making it, like you said, kind of a day-to-day discussion or normalizing it to some degree, because people are living longer with it. They're working with it. They're having, fulfilled lives, going through their experience. But I think we as a society need to get better at helping people understand it if you're not going through it.
When did the word abandon become ghost?
I don't know.
I think I missed the memo on that.
I don't know. I'm only in Gen X. I don't know. I can't keep up with it.
We can get rad, gnarly, fat, deaf, fresh. We can get away with that stuff. I don't know what this skibbity crap is anymore. So, all right. Lightning round. AI, very much like Family Feud. If Christine Verini's life were a Netflix series, what three cultural icons from the 70s, 80s, or 90s, from art, film, music, and TV, history, or pop culture could bring her story to life? I don't expect you to answer the question, but I'd like you to just consider who might these people be. And it did a lot of digging on you. I found like every single thing you've ever been in the news in the last 10 years. It listened to some of your YouTube conversations. It was really creepy awesome.
I don't know.
Okay. Erin Brockovich.
Okay.
The scrappy advocate who took on the big systems with nothing but sheer determination and grit. Her story reminds us that real change comes from everyday heroes fighting for what's right.
I love it.
All right. This is my favorite choice. Terry Gross, the NPR host who spent decades drawing out raw, authentic stories in a gentle yet inclusive way, bringing that grounded, real talk vibe that cut through the pretense to society.
I like that.
And here's a throwback. I don't know how many people remember him, but Dr. Bernie Siegel. Remember Bernie Siegel? Mm-mm. Bernie was a mentor of mine. He was a really famous surgeon in the 80s and 90s, cancer surgeon. And he wrote a book, which at the time was very controversial, called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. Early Mind Body, Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Andrew Weil, Wayne Dyer, that level of thinking from an allopathic surgeon.
I love it.
Yeah. So Bernie Siegel, not a household name, so AI acknowledged what I'm saying. His approach to cancer care and healing has touched many lives. His blend of medical insight with heartfelt wisdom is a perfect match for a pharmacist passionate about changing lives.
I love it. And I'm so into like alternative ways. Like I'm big into meditation and looking at things, gratitude and just all those kind of things that people don't always accept.
Nope.
I'm very accepting of those.
So according to AI, you are Bernie Siegel, Terry Gross, Erin Brockovich. This mix offers practical insight, genuine humanity, and the kind of everyday heroism that reflects a life dedicated to cancer care and leadership.
Oh.
See, a good use of AI.
You made my day.
All right. Well, now your day's over. Christine Verini, the CEO of one of my favorite organizations in the world, CancerCare. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Matt. This was wonderful.
Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is a production of Matthew Zachary Worldwide. The executive producer is Matthew Zachary. It is mixed and edited by Kyle Moore. If you like the show, ratings and reviews are always welcome wherever you get your podcasts. If you have guest suggestions or would like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, email podcast@matthewzachary.com. For more information about Matthew Zachary and Matthew Zachary Worldwide, visit matthewzachary.com.